Welcome to episode 233 of The Night Shift. Mike Stubbs, Kyle Grimard, preseason is over. We'll recap it. We'll talk about some of the guys who have stopped by on their way to NHL camps. We'll even talk with one of those guys, Luke Evangelista. We're going to perhaps, Kyle, challenge our thought that Linus Funk was the most interesting man on the London Knights or maybe in the OHL. He still might be, but he's got some company. We're going to meet Julian Brown, and you're going to find out how interesting Julian Brown is.
I'm excited about that. I have a story too, Mike, really quick here. At the last preseason game at home, Linus Funk's billet family, his billet mom, and this is going to kill me because her name it's not coming to me, and I feel really bad because we had a great conversation. But nevertheless, she told me that they listened to the pod and he was like, they got a kick out of it. And now apparently because of the food adjustment, they heard the pod. And so the next time he went home, they made him fried fish. They tried to replicate what they had there. And it was, they had a field day with it. So I love the fact that they listened. Again, I apologize if I'm not getting, if I can't remember the name, but we had a great chat. She said to come on the pod and talk a little bit more about it. So I said, by all means. So we have to find a way to reach out and make that happen because it was hysterical getting their reaction.
Let's make that happen.
It was good.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll talk about something else who Kyle ran into last weekend as well. But we have breaking news from the London Knights. So breaking that we have to pick it up and read it off a phone. So let me click a couple things. The Knights have made some roster moves. So They are finished the preseason. And nothing like a trade. All of these guys are still a part of the organization, but it's just where they are going to start this year. So Eddie Hickson goes to the London Nationals. Ilon Legalic, St. Thomas Stars. Cooper McCaslin, London Nationals. Max Muse will start the year with the London Nationals. Owen Miniotis with the Camoka Kings. And Cody Wood to the London Nationals. So the GOJHL was actually just named a partner development league with the Ontario Hockey League. This is another new announcement. And so that has brought those two leagues together. And I wonder how much we're going to see this because you're going to want to see leagues work together, partner up, and hope that what that does is it gets your players ready for that next jump. And it just comes all the way through. We've seen it through the London Junior Knights organization where you've got guys who are 9 years old who will have that little contract signing picture and they'll have their Junior Knights gear on as they commit to the Junior Knights. And then on they go up through the ranks, hoping to one day make it as high as the Ontario Hockey League. So those two announcements have just come out. And we are also going to look again at the Eastern Conference and run through who might be where once everything finishes up. The East was maybe the most interesting conference. I know there are only two, but it was the most interesting conference in the OHL last year in that there were 5, you could even say 6 contenders on a 10-team conference. That doesn't happen. Usually 2, maybe an outsider at 3. Last year, you had 6. This year will be a bit of a different year. It's kind of one team and then everybody else. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. But Kyle, if we look back over the preseason, one of the things that you're going to clamp down on is the fact that the Knights went 4-0 in the preseason. But let's look at another aspect of that. Because the Knights went 4-0 and Erie was trying out some younger players. Sarnia was trying out some younger players. But we also saw the Knights go up against rosters featuring the Erie Otters as they may be, or featuring the Sarnia Sting almost as they may be this year. So this is a really impressive record. And then you factor in Noah Reed, Noah Abaflon, Evan Van Gorp, Jared Woolley, Andoni Femus, Henry Bristevich all played just 2 of the 4 games. And then Sam O'Reilly and Alexei Medvedev and Linus Funk all played just 1. And so you had a lot of those returning veterans, the guys who will come off the ice after practice and there will be some championship hats to sign, and the guys that are actually signing them because they were on the championship team. Those guys didn't spend a whole lot of time on the ice, and yet 4-0. Now, Kyle, I'm trying not to take too much from the preseason. It is preseason. But I think we can take some things from what we saw that are as positive as 4-0.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you take out of proportion and take to the moon and say like, all right, they're going back to back. They're going to lose 3 games all year. Like that's not what we're going to do here. However, it is notable that a lot of the contributions and the guys that we've talked about many times here on the pod during the training camp and the preseason have been guys that weren't, members of the team last year. Jackson Cover was a name that's been brought up nonstop. Another guy, Logan Howry is a guy who has popped a lot as well. We're seeing a lot more of guys like Noah Abaflan and Evan Van Gorp, and these are the guys that are going to take the next step. So you want those guys contributing and being a part of things, which we've seen, but you want to see those guys who weren't necessarily on the team last year start to make those moves and show that they're going to be impact players for the team this year. I think we're getting a little bit of everything. And I also just think too that it's a culture, it's a style. I think that because there are so many vacancies from the guys that have left the team from last year, I think everybody has a little extra pep in their step, knowing that there are spots available for them to take and potentially hold on to in going into this season. And I think that's a big boost to some of the guys who are maybe pushing a little harder to try and make this team.
And one of the other great things that I think we saw was the fact that the Knights have lost a lot of veterans. They lost a lot of 19-year-old guys because typically in junior hockey, that's what it takes. If you're going to win the Memorial Cup, you're not winning the Memorial Cup with a roster that is full of 17-year-olds who are just finding their way. You're doing it with 19-year-olds, but they bring in Caden Hawkins. They bring in Braden Clark. Ben Wilmot has looked fantastic in the 2 games that he has played. Cody Wood has just been this disruptive force. So you've got guys who will step in and they will contribute. And then you've got the goaltending performances. And if we're to look back over the last 2 games that the London Knights played in the preseason, both against Erie, a 2-1 win with a very late Erie goal on a little nice backdoor play that you could not fault Seb Gatto on. And then the next day, a 2-0 win where Jaden Shillette gets a shutout. Seb Gatto and Jaden Shillette have had great preseasons, and their numbers are almost identical. I mean, Seb Gatto plays 90 minutes, and Jaden Shillette plays 89 minutes. They split a game in Sarnia. And if you look at their save percentage, you have Seb Gatto at .953 and you have Jaden Shillette at .943. But Kyle, .953, .943. Those are numbers that you just don't hold on to. It's nice to get them through 89 and 90 minutes.
Yeah, their numbers, you're right. They don't hold on to, they don't get sustained. However, having said that, this is a great problem to have. Like, this is something that every team wishes. Like, God, our goalies are playing too good in the preseason. That's what's going on. Now, they know that Alexei Medvedev is going to be a member of this team. They're trying to figure out what to do. You made, Mike, the suggestion to me. We were talking a little bit off camera, saying that there's a potential that they run with 3 guys and maybe, have 2 of them dressed per game. We don't know how it's going to work. It's not always a common thing, but if you've got guys that you think can come in and play well, it's not out of the possibilities that it could happen. I've had a chance more to watch Seb Gatto play, and man, does he look good. He's got a little bit of that Austin Elliott. He's calm in the net. He's big. He's hyper focused. He's got that reliability that you can just see in his game, which you absolutely love. And then we're waiting to see more on Chalet and see what he's able to do. But the fact that they legitimately have 3 goaltenders who they would be comfortable with going into game 1 of the season. And that is a huge luxury to have, especially at the junior level.
If we look defensively, we saw some great performances. Everybody talks about Maxim Sokolovsky. I walked through the gates going into the Western Fair and immediately was stopped by somebody saying, I was at the game on Saturday. I cannot believe Sokolovsky. And it's wild to watch a guy that big who is that skilled and that mobile, and he's just been fun to watch and physical. I mean, when he steps into somebody, he can flatten them without really trying, just because he is that big. So he's certainly been somebody that people have taken note of. And another guy adding a physical edge, and you always want to have that on your back end, is Julian Brown. And we were able to catch up with Julian Brown after practice. He grew up in New Jersey, but he was born in Maryland. And so his athletic career, his hockey career, began in Maryland. When we're talking about sports in Maryland, where would hockey be? I mean, Dale Hunter played there, Dylan Hunter played there, but right now in 2025, what's hockey like?
It's definitely not the top. I mean, lacrosse is obviously a huge sport there, but it's growing a lot. A lot of the lacrosse guys played hockey. Like, I was one of them. I played lacrosse in the spring, hockey in the fall, and I kind of just fell in love with hockey, where I found out I was better at it, kind of enjoyed it more, and fell in love with it that way, just from lacrosse to hockey, then stuck with that.
Do you find that there is maybe a style of play for guys who've been in lacrosse? Like, you don't mind throwing the body, you don't mind being physical. Do you think that comes from lacrosse? And as little guys, are guys running around doing that?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, my dad, he was a lacrosse player, so he was my coach, and he kind of taught me that physical style of play where lacrosse, you're allowed to, cross check, get away with a couple slashes. So that kind of carried over to my hockey game, and it's the style I play.
Nice. Well, people are noticing the style already. Talk about moving to New Jersey. Maybe a little bit more of a hockey atmosphere in New Jersey. Is there still lacrosse there too?
Yeah, it's still lacrosse there. No, it was definitely a bigger hockey state. We moved there in 8th grade. Played for a great Colonials team. Won a lot of tournaments, and the training's definitely better up there. I skate with a couple guys out there. There's a lot more pro guys, so you can get on the ice with pro guys. They teach you new things, and just the intensity of those summer skates, I think, are better.
Wow. Okay. And then obviously you start to realize I can take this somewhere. So what do you start thinking? NCAA? Do you start looking at where your future is going at some point?
Yeah, I'm not fully decided on my future yet, but obviously I'd love to go to college. My parents, they stress that the academics is very important, where you never know, something could happen out on the ice, and you need a backup plan. You can't just be all eggs in one basket. So they've always stressed that academics is very strong, very important piece of my life. And so they've stressed that I need to have straight A's, stressed I need to be trilingual, all this stuff. And I've kind of upheld that.
I love it. Love it. Great family. Mm-hmm. So last year you go to the BCHL. Take us to how that happened and what it was like.
So I was in Dubuque in the USHL. I was at their camp, and they have the same owners as Nanaimo. And I didn't make Dubuque, but Nanaimo, their owners were there, and they saw it, and they thought they still want to keep me in the system. And they called me to go out there, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. I had great billets, great house, great teammates, great roommate. It's beautiful out there. Obviously, it's one of the most beautiful places out in Vancouver Island. And I loved playing there. Coaches were great, and I have nothing but appreciation for what they did for me.
So take us through winters in Maryland or in New Jersey versus winters in Nanaimo. How wintry did it actually get?
It actually didn't get too bad. It only snowed once, surprisingly. They told me that the temperature on the island's pretty tempered. But didn't get too bad. Luckily, I'm not a big fan of the cold, so I bought a big parka when I figured I was coming here. But I hate the cold, hate the heat. I'm more of like a sweater and sweatpants kind of guy. Just 50, 60 degrees. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but
that's good though. I mean, 50 to 60, it's about 12, 15, 18, somewhere around there. It's good stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, that's spring and fall. I think you got a lot of spring and fall fans around here. And you know what? We'll go through in February, maybe 2 weeks of real cold, where you'll get off that team bus and you'll go,
you won't be seeing me outside. I'll be
or even going to Sudbury. Yeah, you'll notice it in Sudbury, but overall, this isn't too bad a place either. Let's talk about coming to the Knights and what it's been like putting on a Knights uniform so far.
I'm honored. Obviously, it's such a storied program. I'm good friends with Tonio. I skate with him over the summer, and he told me everything about it, what to expect. And I mean, guys are great. Coaches are, obviously arguably the best in junior hockey, and they've helped me out a lot. I already feel like I'm improving in the week or two that I've been here. And I can't wait to get the regular season started.
When you signed your OHL development scholarship agreement, Tonio was there.
Yeah, he was. We skated with the same skills coach, and one day we were hanging on a boat together, and we had a great time. I remember we were out in a floaty, and we drifted out so far in the middle of the lake, and we had to kick back, and that was kind of the start of our friendship, where we were just laughing at each other like, oh man, we didn't realize how far out we went. We had boats yelling at us like, you guys okay? And we're out like probably a mile into a lake all by ourselves. It's kind of started at that, seeing each other probably 2 or 3 times a week at skill skates, and grew into that.
London Knights defenseman Julian Brown. See? Candidate for most interesting man. I think I didn't expect this, but he's trilingual. So next time we talk to him, we're going to do it in 3 different languages. He is somebody who sits out on a floaty with Tonio Strangis to the point people are yelling to try and make sure they're okay because they're just having a great time talking hockey, getting to know each other, and becoming buddies. And there is Tonio when Julian joins the London Knights and signs his OHL scholarship and development agreement right there. And in fact, Kyle, Tonio Strangis was right there at the last home game for the London Knights in the preseason. You had a chance to chat with him. How's he doing?
He's doing great. I mean, he came right up to me. He was super pumped to be there. He was in town for a few days, caught a game, did a little bit of ice stuff before he heads back out to Texas for a new season. But the one thing that struck me was these guys don't expect to get ovations or applauses when they come in, and he was just sitting by himself in the stands watching the game. The camera panned to him, and the PA comes on and says, "Welcome back, Antonio Strangis," and the crowd erupts. And he told me, he's like, I had no idea the crowd was going to be. It's still really cool that they have that reaction. And, he was one of the most electrifying players that, has come through this system. He's had some dazzling end-to-end goals. His edge work is spectacular. He's excited for a new year in Texas. He's got a new coach that I think he's really excited about, that he likes his game plan and his style. And we're hoping for a big breakout year from Antonio. But it was really cool to catch up with him. Funny on the Julian Brown thing, too. He was going to sign the contract. There was an issue of getting into, it was his billet or his family's home. So Tonio said, "Come to my place and sign it, because you can't just sign it outside." So he went in, and it was actually at Antonio Strange's place where he was able to sign the contract. He threw on a jersey, and there's the story for you.
Wow, look at that. And
Yeah.
these two haven't known each other very long. I mean,
Nope.
Tonio is such an engaging personality. We've had other players come through the Knights or come through the OHL, and they just lived on his street. And you just become Tonio's friend because he lives 9 doors down, and how could you not? So it's going to be interesting to watch because he had a great year for the Texas Stars last year. So does he get his first taste of NHL hockey this year? Certainly one of those things to watch away from everything else. All right, let's zero in on the Eastern Conference. A little look at the Eastern Conference. We'll preview the Western Conference next week. Remember, the Knights open the OHL schedule on Friday, September 19th against the Owen Sound Attack. They will raise the banner, big celebration. In fact, here's how big that night is. All of the arena staff, best arena staff in the OHL at Canada Life Place. The arena staff was actually cleaning the red carpets before the last night's practice. And so you had these enormous carpets laid out. They actually had to pick up seats and push seats back so that they could lay out the red carpets just to get them pristine. And we're still over a week away. And this is the thing that they are doing now to be ready. So thank you to the arena staff. We will be ready for that opening night and another banner raising ceremony. If we look at the Eastern Conference last year, Kyle, it was crazy. It was, how many times did we sit and talk about all of the teams that appeared to think that they were going to win the Eastern Conference and advance to the OHL Championship Series? You had Brantford, who ended up finishing first overall, and yet nobody remembers that anymore because they lost out in the second round to Oshawa. They took a 2-0 series lead on Oshawa, and then remember, Nick Lardis got hit and left, and they didn't win another game after that. And so Brantford, who knows, in a different universe, maybe they wind up facing the London Knights in the OHL Championship. As it stands, the Oshawa Generals made it back. Oshawa was certainly in that mix. Barrie was in that mix. They had one of the best lines going in the OHL last year of Owen Van Steensel and Dallin Wakely and Austin Romani. And then you had Kingston. And then you had Brampton that ended up finishing 5th, although they were as low as 7th pretty late in the season. And then Sudbury was also in there. They had added Henry Muse. So all of these teams kind of made moves to go for it, and only one of them made it to the final. That was Oshawa. And now a lot of these teams will be taking a step back. Not all of them, but it won't be quite the same kind of year for them. So don't expect 6 wide going through the final turn in the Eastern Conference this year. It is basically the Brantford Bulldogs on paper and then everybody else. But I don't want to just say it like that because there are teams that we'll get to that will have an opportunity. But the Brantford Bulldogs, Kyle, do return as much as you could possibly return. I mean, this lineup, this one in Kitchener, loaded for this season.
Yeah, they really are. And you mentioned how big of an impact it was not having Nick Lardis on the team last year. He's now a product of the Chicago Blackhawks, but you're right. Last year there were 5 or 6 different teams who you'd go through the series or the first round matchups in the playoffs on that side, and you go, any one of these teams could take the other down and move forward. You talked about it in the series where Oshawa was down. You remember Oshawa went up 1-0 on the Knights in the finals, and everyone was like, oh, is this going to happen? And then the Knights were able to storm back and win 4 straight. But that Eastern Conference was wide open last year. And I think there's obviously, Mike, there's going to be another maybe 2 or 3 surprise teams that maybe play a little bit above what we expect going into the season that get into that conversation. But you're right. There are 2 teams, one in particular, that they're bringing back a lot of guys from last year. They're going to look very similar and have that upper, maybe have a little bit more of an edge going into the year. And those expectations are higher. But I can't wait to watch it all unfold because that was one of the more intriguing stories of the year down the stretch.
Well, Brantford starts with a great goaltending tandem in Ryerson Leenders and David Igorov. They have Merrick Van Acker, who's healthy. Merrick Van Acker has battled some injuries. He's from Delhi, but boy, he will be a force this year. Jake O'Brien, first overall pick in the NHL, 8th overall to the Seattle Kraken. Their defense core is kind of a mix of skilled and mean. And so when you have mean in there along with skill, you've got a chance to do big things. And then, of course, their head coach is Jay McKee, and he's just a tremendous coach. So they do earn that #1 pedestal, and they're kind of a couple of steps above everybody. But can they be caught? Absolutely they can. I would look and say Sudbury is an interesting team to look at because last year they seemed to add a couple of players, and then it didn't work out. They didn't win their first round series with the Kingston Frontenacs, but Sudbury still has a lot of interesting names, and they've also brought in Jan Kovan, who is actually the son of Jan Kovan, who used to play goalie for the London Knights a long, long time ago. 01-02. He was in net. He had the shiniest pads, and now his son is a dynamo. And he comes in with Vladimir Provorov, and he's the younger brother, fairly younger, because his brother, Ivan Provorov, now plays in the NHL, but he was a member of the Brandon Wheat Kings. The Knights played him in the Memorial Cup in 2016. And Ivan Provorov may go down in major junior history as having the thickest legs in major junior. You would watch this guy walk around off the ice and you would think, look at those legs. How does this? He was never wearing jeans. I don't think he can own jeans, but he has some thick legs. So we'll see what his brother can do. And his brother, maybe a little different. He's not a defenseman, but a skilled forward. If Sudbury had Henry Muse, you'd be going, And the other thing Sudbury may want to do is grab a goaltender with some solid experience. So we'll see what happens because there are maybe some goaltending moves to be made. So the Sudbury Wolves could jump in there. The next team that I would point to, Niagara. And this is kind of a strange one because Niagara has certainly had their struggles, but Ryan Robrook, Ethan Zada, they're coming of age. And they've made a lot of moves still. They make a lot of trades. Latest one is Liam Spencer to the Knights, and they also picked up Riley Patterson from the Barrie Colts. I think this team may still be a year ahead, but if they can take this year to truly gel this team, make them all feel like ice dogs, I think next year is a year where maybe Niagara has a go for it kind of year. And then Barrie would kind of be in that as well because they still have Cole Baudouin. They still have Keishon Aitchison, who's now a first-round pick of the New York Islanders, and a guy who blends skill and mean in his own body. You don't need to say, all right, we got a defenseman who's skilled, we got another one who's mean. He's both. And so he is going to have a dynamite year in the Ontario Hockey League and be a very scary player once again to play against. And then Emil Hemming. So Barrie has some good weapons. Ben Rebick in net. So I think they are in that mix. And then Oshawa's got a lot of question marks. What happens in net. They don't have Jacob Oster anymore. What happens with Beckett Seneca? I mean, Kyle, could Beckett Seneca make the jump to the Anaheim Ducks? He's big.
Yeah, this would be the year I would think, he has that chance and should be able to do it. He's a guy that, he's a very high caliber draft pick. He was picked within the top 5, I believe, 3rd overall to the Ducks. He went back and, he spent a year in junior and, he dominated to an extent of what you expected him to do. He's a very high-end skilled player. I think he's starting to learning how to use his size would be the big thing, but Anaheim's a team where they're in the mix right now of figuring things out. Like they've moved off of a lot of young players that haven't worked out. I wonder if they're going to let guys develop a little bit longer or replace them with some of the younger picks that they have right now. He's a guy who's going to go to camp and they're going to give him every opportunity to make that team. But, you're right. He's a big question mark, much like to the extent of Sam Dickinson with the Knights. He's a guy that, could make that jump to the NHL, but do the Sharks want to implement him now in the roster? Do they want to let him sit for another year or so before kicking in that first year of the deal? The Ducks may be in a little bit of a different place than the Sharks, so we'll find out what they do.
Well, Oshawa has that know-how of having made it to the OHL Championship Series 2 years in a row. You don't forget how to do that, and that should keep this team competitive no matter what. But question mark in goal, does Isaac Gravel take over the net? What happens in terms of some of the go-to guys that they have lost, like Cal Ritchie? So is Owen Griffin ready to step into that spot? Oshawa's got some questions in that way. And then if we go below that, North Bay is quietly just building themselves. Adam Dennis does a tremendous job. And I want to see how far they jump up because remember, they had gone to 3 consecutive Eastern Conference Championship Series. And for whatever reason, sometimes the Oshawa Generals had not been able to advance to the final. And then it was turn around, get younger, and they've done that. But I think they're doing that maybe more quickly than we expect. And one guy to pay attention to is Parker Vaughn this year, who's from St. Thomas, because last year with North Bay, by the end of the year, you were starting to look and say, oh, he's going to be doing that. Oh, he's going to take the puck that hard to the net. And when he's 17 and 18 with more pounds and more size on him, he's not going to be stopped. So I'm interested to see that. And then Adam Dennis always finds good goaltending. So North Bay can't be counted out as kind of that sneaky team that maybe is a year early and starts to make noise. Peterborough should be better. They have been building again, getting some high draft picks. They also have Yanis Lutz and Adam Novotny. And if they can find that chemistry they seem to have in the preseason, in the regular season, then that's good. And then the 2 teams that I look at and say, man, are Brampton and Kingston. And Kingston, I always feel for Kingston because Kingston, to me, if you look historically, at least over the last, 10 years, 15 years, now that they've started getting back into the playoffs and at times having chances to get out of the first round. It was a long time before they did that. I think they went 1998 to 2016 without getting out of the first round. But since then, they've started to do that. So we're looking at a 10-year window. But they seem to be, if you picture high school and you're in that gymnasium setting, whether it's a dance or whatever's going on, and somebody sees that person that they really like and they've always wanted to talk to, and they go to talk to them, and somebody else moves in and talks to them. And then they have another chance and they go to talk to them again. And there's just somebody else who's always moving in. That's the Kingston Frontenacs. Last year, they did make some moves. They looked good, but then Oshawa, then Barrie, whoever it happens to be that they run into. And so Kingston feels like that team. Now they are a team that has lost a lot of their depth. And so this could be a year where Kingston focuses in on some of the young guys and looks to hopefully get back to that high school dance where maybe they get to the person and they get to meet them and happily ever after. And then Brampton's the other team. And Brampton maybe has taken the 2 biggest hits, Kyle, in NCAA world because this should have been their year. This should have been the year because you now have Porter Martone, who's 18. He's a draft pick. You had other guys that you built around, Jack Ivan Kovic, and both of those guys are gone. Like both of those guys no longer exist on their roster because they've elected to go NCAA.
Yeah, and this is the year where you see it being affected maybe the most, and you have to wait for a few years to kind of find out how it's going to work moving forward. But there were a lot of big name players that made that decision, that got offers from the NCAA to go play over there. And listen, if you know you're going back and you're playing a year before you turn pro, why not go and play that year? They get to go to school, you get to make a little bit. Like, it's hard to fault the players for making that decision because it's not one they take lightly. They don't just, I think, look at the money and shine and all of a sudden run. It's, you're moving to a different country. You are completely leaving your friends, your family, what's comfortable to you and what you have known for your entire life. So it is a big move, but it is a big loss for these teams that, we're expecting going into this year to have those players as the cornerstone guys to build their teams around. So that's an adjustment that I think every team's going to have to make. It's just unfortunate that they're at the front for the first year that it's happening. I mean, obviously outside of Medicine Hat too, who lost a multitude of guys, including obviously Gavin McKenna, but this will just be an adjustment and to see, because I think it's also going to come the other way. The swing is going to come, the pendulum's going to come back. There's going to be players that aren't happy with their playing time at the NCAA level. They're going to be like, I need to go play somewhere where I'm going to be put on display. And we're bringing in these kids who are very high capital, but I've got a year on them and I can show that I can play with the best of the best. I think that's going to come back. It's just not immediate. So we've got to wait for that to swing back in our direction. But for right now, yeah, like those are massive skates you've got to fill for the year.
And then I guess if we go looking at where we head after this, the Eastern Conference, it's Brantford, and then we see. But the other thing that we're focusing in on right now, of course, is rookie tournaments, because things are getting going in the National Hockey League. You've got rookie camps that are already underway. Some of them will come with tournaments, and some of them will just come with games. Some teams elect not to do anything like that. So before we close things out, why don't we talk with Luke Evangelista, and then we'll outline what rookie tournaments are happening where. Luke Evangelista popped by Canada Life Place and was able just to see some old coaches. I mean, old teammates. Yeah, it's getting tough to find those. Max McHugh was around at the same time. They played together. But Luke Evangelista, Kyle, is now heading into his third full year in the National Hockey League, which is tough to think of, but he was somebody who was so mature. It just seems like he could still be with the Knights. But how about the best story? And when Luke was there, this got mentioned, not with Luke standing there, but it got mentioned. Young players who are looking and going, wow, there's Luke Evangelista of the Predators. And it was, do you know how many goals he scored in his first year? 0. Do you know how many goals he scored in his last year? 55. Led the OHL in goals. He had 110 points. That's what it takes. Trust that process. Things move along slowly. And he was just almost emblematic being there where young players could go, seriously? He didn't score a single goal in his first year? Well, even if that happens to me, I can still be Luke Evangelista. And it's such a great story for that reason.
Yeah, it's one that's going to be used over and over and over again. But I mean, a guy that just stayed humble, didn't get frustrated despite going over the calendar year. And then all of a sudden he scores one, Mike, in his first game. What was it, like 7, 8, 9, 10 games into the second year? And he scores another one in the same game. And it's like the monkey's off the back and he just started rolling. He ended up scoring, I think, 22 or 23 goals that year, gets drafted, comes back to the Knights. And what does he do? Pots 55 in the net, leads the OHL, like you said. And, like even last year, I think it was an up and down year for him. He's only able to play in 68 games with some injury stuff. Still had 32 points. So the points per game is slowly coming up. I think he's getting more comfortable at the NHL level. It takes time for these guys, but always nice to come back and reminisce where you had some of your best years and maybe get a little bit of that sparkle, go into the year on a fresh start. And I love being able to see that guy in and around the rink.
Well, let's hear from him now. Here's Luke Evangelista heading into his third season in the National Hockey League. Luke, people seeing you on the ice were thinking back to your OHL career and leaving with 55 goals and the progress. And how about now? Do you feel going into camp, does it feel like you're in the NHL because you played the last 2 years there?
Yeah, I think a little more security now. Once you get a couple of years under your belt, get to know the organization and stuff, and even just coming back here, it brings back a lot of memories and some good times. But just for the Hunters, let me come back and kind of get geared up for camp a couple of weeks early. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to be back and excited to get going to Nashville again.
When you look back to memories here, I mean, what is it you think about? Is it just everyday stuff, or is there anything that stands out?
It's everything. It's the memories, on the ice, the memories in the locker room, team meals, all that stuff. That's what makes junior so fun. Is everyone's in the same age range, and everyone's aspiring for the same goals. And a lot of good memories for sure. Even just driving back in the city last night, it was all flooding back to me. So some good times.
Talk to us a little bit about playing in Nashville. People go to Nashville for a vacation. You live there. What is that like?
Yeah, it's awesome. I love that city. It's a riot. It's one of those spots where you get a lot of visitors and family coming down just because of that scene on Broadway and some nice weather there. So I'm very fortunate to be living there. I love the city, love the people, and I can't wait to get back.
As a local now, do you still head down to kind of the most popular spots, or do locals go somewhere else?
Yeah, I kind of learned that the locals kind of have their own spots off of the main strip there, but our rink, Bridgestone Arena, is right on Broadway, so we spend plenty of time there too.
You had a chance last year to play with Steven Stamkos. Take us through that experience. What you learned from having a guy like that join your team?
Yeah, that's an unreal experience. I mean, even just before we got on the ice together, just meeting him the first day of camp, and kind of getting to know him a little bit off the ice. It's pretty surreal. I mean, he's a legend in the game. He's gonna be a Hall of Famer. He's won cups, and just the knowledge and wisdom he has on the ice as well. He's the kind of guy where you just want to pick your brain. So he's been great for us.
When you go to pick a guy's brain like that, I mean, what do you ask about? Because it's difficult to shoot the puck like him, right? There are things he does that other human beings just can't do.
Yeah, I mean, you're not so much asking about that. That's kind of like a God-given talent that he's got. But it's just, more like the way he's reading the ice and certain plays and stuff like that. He's been around a long time. He's faced a lot of good players, played with some great players. He tells some stories about Kucherov and what he used to do, and all that kind of stuff. Just picking that kind of knowledge out of his brain.
Former London Knight, now current Nashville Predator, Luke Evangelista, on living in Nashville, playing in Nashville. And if anybody's got the hair for Nashville, I mean, we should have asked him, did he get mistaken for a country musician walking down the street at all last year? If it didn't happen, well, he's never going to be mistaken for an NHL player, because that's where he is right now, and that's what he has become. So we mentioned rookie camps. So here's where London Knights players, former players, recent players are going to be. Obviously, the Knights have a lot of ex-players in the National Hockey League, but when we're talking about rookie camps, Max McHugh with the Columbus Blue Jackets is going to be playing against Boston and Buffalo and New Jersey and Pittsburgh, and they play that one at the Prospects Challenge in Buffalo, New York, and it gets going on September the 11th and continues until the 15th. So depending on when you're listening to this, that's very close. Yeah. And then you've got the Flyers and the Rangers, who the last couple of years have played just a couple of games against each other. They'll do that again on September 12th and 13th. That, of course, means Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey. Then you've got Sam O'Reilly, now with Tampa Bay, and he'll be participating in a rookie event that has Carolina and Nashville and Florida in it, and that starts on September 12th and carries through until September the 15th. And then we also have Henry Brustevich, Jared Woolley, Sam Dickinson, and Kasper Halttunen, all kind of head-to-head. San Jose, LA, and Anaheim will play that. And then you've got kind of the Canadian version of this, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Winnipeg. And that will, of course, have Jacob Julian and Easton Cowan in it. It begins September 13th and will run just through until September the 14th. And then you've got Alexei Medvedev and the Vancouver Canucks, who are taking on Seattle in just one game, because some teams are electing not to do anything. Calgary, Edmonton, Islanders, Washington, they're not doing that. The Islanders kind of have not been a part of rookie tournaments. They like just to start training camp. So
Yeah.
Jesse Nurmi is going to wind up just heading off to training camp with Isaiah George. But those are the rundowns of where guys are going to be and when that takes place. So that's how close we are to the start of rookie camps and then ultimately the preseason in the NHL. And that Sam Dickinson question is out there, but at the same time, we still want to see, where does Easton Cowan wind up? Where does Oliver Bonk? Where does Kasper Halttunen, Denver Barkey? Where do they start their pro careers? So many guys going off and starting those pro careers. So we'll be watching that throughout the pod this year.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting too, Mike. I also think too, Landon Sim is going to be part of that Canadian trip with the Toronto Maple Leafs, so he's going to be there. Caden Hawkins is also with the Leafs, so Leafs are starting to look at the Knights a little bit and go, yeah, we'll start pulling from you guys a little bit. You seem to be doing pretty well, and I like that factor. I think it's going to benefit them.
Look forward to it. Well, that is all that we have for today. We will certainly have a Western Conference preview on our next pod next week, and then it's off to the regular season for the London Knights. So visit londonnights.com, get your tickets. Don't forget that calendar magnet is given away on September 26th. So if you go online and tickets are tough to come by for the 19th, just zip ahead to the 26th and you may be able to get some tickets there and get the calendar magnet that will take you through the entire season, which we will be doing on the night shift week by week by week.
Yep, sounds good. Again, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. We have video stuff up now, all the interviews, Mike, that you do, little clips and as whatnot. We'll go on our socials, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Chromecast, Spotify, you name it. We are there and we are getting ready, set here, Mike, for a 2025-26 season. Until next week, we'll talk soon.